Hello, everyone. This is a new episode of the Global Judicial Integrity Network podcast series. We are here today with Justice Adrian Saunders of the Caribbean Court of Justice, also President of the Caribbean Association of Judicial Officers, and as another hat that he has in his many functions, a member of the advisory board of the Global Judicial Integrity Network. We're here with him today to talk about judicial ethics training and a little bit as well about codes of ethics, codes of judicial ethics. Justice Saunders, thank you so much for your time and for doing this episode with us. To start our conversation, I would like to ask you to please tell us briefly about your experience in judicial ethics education.
Thank you very much, Roberta. Well, I was appointed as a judge in 1996, and shortly after my appointment, my Chief Justice, Sir Dennis Byron, assigned me to the task of assisting in judicial education for the judiciary. I was young, I was enthusiastic, and I was assigned to a district, to two islands, Montserrat and Anguilla, where the judicial work was not very heavy, so I had quite a bit of time on my hands. And as part of that initiative, I was sent to be trained at the Commonwealth Judicial Education Institute's intensive study program. And after that, I never looked back. I went back to the CJEI's program as a tutor, so to speak, and I became very much involved in judicial education in the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. I became the chair of our judicial education body, and then I also became the course director of the CJEI, the Commonwealth Judicial Education Institute's program in Halifax.
You also helped to develop the first Judicial Code of Ethics for the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. Why did you feel that it was time for a Code of Ethics?
Well, we hadn't had a Code of Ethics before, and this was in the late 1990s, and it was in the wake of discussions on the Latimer House guidelines about the relations between the three branches of government. The Bangalore principles had been discussed, and the Chief Justice thought that it was time that we should have a Code of Ethics. Some countries in Africa, I think Kenya, Tanzania, they had published a Code of Ethics, and so we thought that we should have one. Initially, it was a little bit of a struggle to get the judges to agree to have a Code of Ethics. There were some judges who thought that they were already ethical and there was therefore no need for them to have a written set of guidelines. There were some judges who thought that a Code of Ethics might actually undermine judicial integrity because it would signal to the public at large that the judges were so unethical that they needed a code to govern themselves. But at the end of the day, those views did not prevail. We saw the advantage of having a code as twofold. First of all, it provided useful guidance to judges on how to comport themselves. There are a lot of gray areas so far as judicial ethics are concerned, and a code would help a judge to be guided as to the kind of standards that judicial office requires of the judge. Secondly, the code was going to offer an accountability tool for the general public, because this would be a document that they could hold and they can use it to assess whether the judiciary is living up to the standards that its members themselves agreed to live by. So on that basis, we formed a committee. I chaired the committee, and we looked at a number of codes that had been published from African countries, particularly from the US Code of Conduct. And we devised a code which was something that came out of our own experiences, but which was compatible with the Bangalore principles.
Mm-hmm. And what recommendations would you have for other countries who might be drafting national codes of ethics?
Well, I would say that first of all, while it is useful, in fact, it is very important to look at other codes, and in particular at the Bangalore principles. The drafting of a national code of ethics must proceed from the culture and the own unique experiences of the specific judiciary. There is no one size that fits all. Secondly, the process of developing the code is even more important than the finished code itself. All judges should be involved in this process of discussing the drafts, of agreeing the precise form of language that should be adopted, and be encouraged to participate in that endeavor, because it is actually during that process that many judges become, perhaps for the first time, aware of and alert to some of the types of behavior that leave something to be desired so far as judicial life and judicial conduct are concerned. Secondly, the code is an undertaking by the judiciary of how its members are agreeing to comport themselves and what the public is entitled to expect from their judges. So the code can't be a secret document. It has to be published, it has to be widely distributed, it must be easily accessible by the public, because, as I said, it's an accountability tool. Thirdly, the code should be revisited periodically, maybe every 4, 5, 6 years or so, because very often there are aspects of it which can become outdated, or there are aspects of it which can be more heavily emphasized with the passage of time. As I mentioned, that it is actually in that process of revisiting it and discussing its contents that the content of the code, the substance of it, is brought home most forcefully to the judges.
And another important aspect is also the application, practical application of the codes. And one area that can help with the enforcement or the good implementation of the codes is also judicial ethics training. So going to this important aspect, in your opinion, what needs to be considered when developing training programs on judicial ethics specifically?
Right. I think, first of all, judges need to be made aware, they need to recognize that the strength and authority of the judiciary lies in the extent to which it enjoys public trust and confidence, that there is a direct correlation between judicial integrity and public trust and confidence. The purpose of judicial ethics training is not just to improve the individual quality of the individual judge, but also to enhance trust and confidence. Every judge naturally wants to know that he or she is doing an excellent job. It's therefore useful to link complaints of litigants and the errors that are found by appellate panels, to link that to aspects of the training curriculum. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I think that there are some dilemmas that raise ethical issues that are not necessarily susceptible to right and wrong answers. Often context is important, so that one's abstract notion of what is fair and just may sometimes have to be balanced against economic constraints or the interests of judicial efficiency. As far as possible, the training should not be conducted in a manner that makes judges feel as if they are being personally targeted. It's important that the trainers strive for almost a fun atmosphere. Unethical conduct should be modeled via a fictitious or hypothetical judge, and the teaching tools that are used should therefore emphasize not so much lectures, but instead such tools as role play, as hypotheticals, or even films that can be found where you have judges behaving in a manner that is unethical. And so these kinds of tools place a sort of a separation between the judicial judges and the actual unethical conduct which you're trying to highlight and to have judges be aware of.
As you also work with the Commonwealth Judicial Education Institute, as you previously mentioned, what do you consider as well as the benefits of regional training programs?
Well, there are two tremendous benefits. First of all, such programs harness a broader set of experiences, and so they enrich group discussion. You have persons coming from different jurisdictions who have undergone slightly different experiences. Secondly, certainly in the Caribbean, where you have several small island states, it is also particularly advantageous economically to bring together judges from neighboring judiciaries so that we can spread costs and maximize the use of resource persons who may come to the region from outside the region.
Yeah. And what areas of judicial ethics are you particularly concerned with in the Caribbean at this time?
There are about 4 areas that I would single out. Firstly, the issue of judicial accountability. Every Judicial Code of Ethics rightly identifies judicial independence as the principal value underpinning judicial conduct. Too often, the public is erroneously led to believe that independence is a shield against judicial accountability. And I believe that a considerable amount of emphasis must be given to the notion that judges are accountable to the public for the quality of their work. There are other aspects of judicial life for which the public demands accountability on the part of judges. Judges are accountable, for example, for a timely delivery of judgment. They're accountable for the length of time that cases remain in the system. They're accountable for the dispatch of their work. And so performance standards and measures are one area where it is important to assure the public that there are published measures that judges agree to abide by. The second area is the issue of gender equality. I think that there has been insufficient awareness of the need for judges to be astute to prevent, consciously or unconsciously, discrimination on the grounds of gender. Gender equality goes beyond a binary notion of gender expression. I think judges need to be sensitive to the full spectrum of gender differences and must ensure that every litigant, every witnesses, every customer of the court, that their dignity and their rights, their human rights, are fully respected. Thirdly, of course, is the use of social media by judges and court staff, and this is an issue which, as you know, CAJO and the network are currently working on. It's a very important and serious issue. And fourthly, there is the issue of the consequences of judicial misbehavior. In all Caribbean states, short of impeachment and removal of office, there is no statutory consequence provided for judicial misbehavior. It seems to me that this places a responsibility on heads of judiciary to devise appropriate and creative ways for ensuring that misbehavior short of that which justifies removal is addressed in an appropriate manner.
Thank you, Justice Saunders. Those are certainly very interesting points, and we look forward to working with you and CAJO through the network in the Caribbean region to address these issues. Thank you very much for your time. This was a very interesting episode in our series, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. To everyone listening, this was another episode in the Global Judicial Integrity Network podcast series, and stay tuned for more episodes on emerging and challenging issues of judicial integrity across regions. Thank you.